Most people find purpose twice in life. For the first time, when they're at the last time in their lives when they can be relatively carefree. And for the second time, when they're forced into a place of you have to pick something to survive. But let's step back though. First time comes usually by your own volition. It's a choice, one that you make internally. The second time comes when the world, your family, professors, your degree, or something else tells you what you're meant to be doing. Or less of what you're meant to be doing and more of what you're supposed to be doing. It is forced upon you externally. Which of those two options actually feels like you have autonomy? That you have a say in what's going on in your own life? That you have the power to make the choice for yourself? Some people, a significant minority but a fortunate one, are lucky enough to carry through with that purpose. I myself and a handful of others around me are doing what they love with their lives each and every day. A growing trend that I've seen is that people are consistently satisfied but not joyful about where they are in life. We only get one life, and yet we're seemingly forced into this position of settling, being pacified, not actually doing what we want to do with our lives. I was there for such a long time, continually ignoring what I was made to be doing with my life for the sake of money, security, keeping up with everyone else, fitting in. Everyone else was happy with the direction I was going in. But I finally asked myself, do I even like the direction I was going in? Maybe you've seen some of my videos, heard some of my songs, interacted with some of my businesses even. Maybe you're also a creative looking for a blueprint on how to approach a career in your profession. Maybe you're a young person trying to find purpose for yourself as well too. And you're probably wondering, what on earth am I even bothering to watch right now? Let me tell you what you've stumbled upon here. My name is Evan. I know, nice to meet you too. I'm 25 years old. I grew up in a small city, graduated high school and university, and then got a job. But none of that is an overt reason for why I'm where I'm at today. The truth is, I've been in the music industry for about 10 years now, grinding in silence through joy, pain, anger, abuse, manipulation, existential crises, mental health issues, sorrow, and a whole bunch more of emotions. And I'm finally at a place where I can take it seriously full time as I enter this next chapter of life. I'd like to welcome you all to Year 11. In the 2010s, the world was witnessing unprecedented growth in one sector we take for granted in 2026, the digital sector. Everything is becoming more digitized, especially one major element of social life, community. Community is expanding into the online world with social media being the vehicle. More and more platforms are emerging to allow people to connect away from being in person. I stand, or in this case sit, here as someone who experienced the shift from the physical world to the digital one. I can remember doing things in person with friends and family for fun, and then seeing all of that slowly begin to shift online. I remember when my sister and I were young, my mom bought us Webkins for the first time. This might be foreign language to a lot of people, but they were basically little stuffed animals, and they came with a code that you could put into the webkins.com website and basically have a digital version of your animal to interact with. You could buy them outfits, customize their room, play little mini games, play Dicekins, which was goated game. If anybody remembers that, they know exactly what I'm talking about. And my mom ended up getting it too. So the three of us were able to sort of play in this digital world just as often as we could play in the physical world too. which was kind of cool, not gonna lie, when I look back on it. I had my first social media platform, though, back in 2013, 2 years prior to where our story starts today. And being on the small, unpopular, unathletic side, uncool especially, of social classes when entering high school, I was able to turn to the digital realm to feel seen, have conversations, meet people who cared more about shared interests than appearance and social status. Despite all of this, life was pretty good in year zero. I was serving in church, playing with various loops in GarageBand, rearranging MIDI, making Christmas albums, and rearranging Bob Marley songs in different genres and styles through GarageBand, playing Splatoon and Xenoblade Chronicles X, discovering hip-hop and electronic production. For those of you who are around back in those days, you'll know when I talk about Don't Tell 'Em by Jeremiah, Lean On by Major Lazer, and You Know You Like It by DJ Snake. Those are the ones that I really credit as being the songs that got me walking through the door towards production. All of this, however, is eclipsed by trying to navigate grade 10, that obviously being the main focus for anybody in that age range. Finding my place in this grand scheme of high school while friends from middle school were already situated in their own friend groups proved to be a pretty tall task. I found myself to be an island very quickly, which is where some of you watching today might find yourself now. I didn't know how to get past this, but something would soon happen that would lead me towards a revelation in my life. Now, growing up, I was always one of the smarter kids in my classes throughout most of middle school and jumping into high school, primary school as well too. Not a flex, I promise. Albeit my math grades did start slipping up in middle school a little bit. A's and B's were mostly what filled my report cards, and I never really had to worry about showing them to my parents. Side note, if you did bad on tests back in those days, I don't know if it's the same now, but if you did bad on those tests back then, you had to give up your nutrition break to make up those marks, which really made learning feel like a punishment a lot more than a privilege, but that's a topic for another time. In grade 10, however, I would learn for the first time that even working really, really hard didn't always pay off in terms of grades, which I found out on my first essay when I got a C on it, which was kind of like, not fun. That English class, when I look back on it, shaped my character in a lot of different ways, especially with this next part of the story. I mentioned earlier that making friends was always a challenge for me. I saw one of my closest friends go from always being around, playing video games, inviting me over to his place, and even at church, small group at the time, to trying to fit in with the cool kids way more, which meant I never got texts back, no interaction on social media or in person unless it was advantageous to him. That class was when I really started to get texts from him again, but again, only because he needed something. When I made the choice for the first time in my life to actually block somebody. Now, the idea of blocking somebody is a pretty foreign concept to a 14-year-old at the time, especially coming from the physical to the digital world. All I knew, however, is that I kind of just wanted him to give me space and not have to worry about when he's coming back, or if he's coming back, and everything emotionally attached to that. Clearly, he got the message from me, and him and I never ended up speaking again for all of high school, and honestly for the rest of our lives. Admittedly, that may have not been the best course of action looking back, but it felt really necessary at the time to avoid being used by the people around me, which I was already starting to see happen. And at this point, things were in kind of a murky place, and I had to try to figure out how on earth I was going to pivot from bad grades and losing friends that I had known my whole life. I can't remember distinctly if I was trying to prove to myself that I was a good writer or not. Me being who I am today, if somebody tells me, oh, you can't do this thing because you're not good at it, it becomes an, oh, okay, now I gotta prove myself because you think that I'm not capable of being something that I know I am. Of course, I don't use that to get me into stupid situations or anything. It's more of like a Michael Jordan shut the haters up mentality. So what does somebody with this mindset on the fringes of social classes in high school, what do they start doing? I started writing fan fiction. And I know you want to click off right now, but that is what my outlet became. It's about all that you'd expect from an angsty outcast of a 14-year-old whose most violently played game was Splatoon. It's actually still online today. I'm not actually going to say the title because I would die from cringe, but I'll definitely figure a way to get to you guys. And at this point too, this wasn't my first rodeo. I was already familiar with using the internet for creative expression. Before Bitmoji, that has essentially just become Snapchat's only selling point, was ever a thing, its predecessor was this platform called Bitstrips, this online community and comic maker that I poured a lot of my time into starting in middle school. In secret, of course. And much like my Bitstrips account, I actually wanted to stay unknown and underground. Very big contrast from being an artist, let me tell you. I didn't really write it for the results. I wrote it more just to say I did that. And maybe one day all of those will get re-uploaded, but I promise you, today is not that day. Oh no, oh no, no, no. So in a very short period of time, life became neglecting to engage with people in school and church in favor of finishing my writing. And in the meantime of all this writing, I kind of needed a background soundtrack to amp me up to get these jobs done. One day after high school, I was browsing on the iTunes store. Yeah, that's right, it was still a thing, and actually a very popular thing when I was still in high school. Not a lot of people had made the jump to this weird thing called Spotify yet. And I started to find hip-hop and rap, which was already something I was becoming more in tune to. After all, I was bumping Jeremiah very frequently. But then I started saving up to buy iTunes gift cards at the drugstore and bought the debut album of New Jersey rapper, now incarcerated, Fetty Wap, which changed everything. That album, the more that I look back on it, it really was the catalyst for sending me on this crazy cavalcade of a musical journey. Just the production, the melodies, the rhymes, the flows changed everything in my life. The way I saw music, the way it became more than just this thing that people liked. It became this... I could really start to see the art in it for the first time. I know people are probably thinking, really? You got art from a Fetty Wap album? I'm like, yeah, I got art from a Fetty Wap album the same way y'all get art from a Little Baby or a Lil Tyler or a Summers album. Like, we all gotta start somewhere, man. And a few weeks later, that would be my jumping off point to buy Rodeo by Travis Scott and then To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar. And after hearing all of this stuff, I now knew what direction I wanted to go in terms of my production. I've been playing around with loops for about 7 or 8 years prior, but now I wanted to make beats, and I finally had the skill set and the inspiration sources to really start doing it for real. And at this point, with all of these skills, I finally began to start seeing and understanding who I was as a person. As a new 15-year-old, I finally started to get a clue of what I was doing with life, what I'm supposed to be doing with life, and what I was starting to get good at. My spare time quickly became neglecting homework in favor of 3 things: video games, writing, and production. I started making friends online as well to play video games with, especially Splatoon. I kept writing and writing more and more to finish all 3 parts of my series. And I kept up with music in the real world, by starting to take band classes, getting back into drum lessons again, producing and doing extracurricular bands, where, again, I was still kind of the outcast. Rap wasn't exactly big with a lot of band kids, and I doubt it still is. And I didn't even mention this. I thought at this point in my life, up to now, I was going to enter computer science once I finished high school. I was taught that this is going to be a big field in the future. I mean, it is a big field, one that AI is slowly taking over more and more each and every day. I literally can use it to code up like 5 websites when I get home from now if I really want to. And I had been doing robotics camps, learning coding in Khan Academy, if anybody remembers that, and everything within that realm. And the class would finally become available for me to study in grade 11. But as I finished the school year, it was glaringly obvious to me that music was the much more preferable backup plan. During the summer of 2016, it became clear that the backup plan was becoming more of the main plan, and it started to take shape as the return to school crept closer and closer each and every day. When I look back at this time in my life, I noticed that these characteristics were starting to emerge. First of all, just wanting to create, but my ability to consume and create by taking cues from things that resonated with me. My ability to take something that was already proven to be successful and make it unique in my own way. How many 15-year-olds know how to implement the idea of good artists copy, great artists steal? For my fellow artists who know they have a creative passion at this age of high school range, and even people who need to rely on creativity in their everyday lives, good artists copy, great artists steal is a concept that a lot of people just don't learn until they're left behind. And honestly, if I hadn't put my pride aside and learned from what was working, instead of trying to formulate the next brand new original idea, starting from what worked and using that to springboard into the next great thing proved to be my greatest asset. Nothing is new under the sun, has been said, so there's no point in trying to create something completely new and original, like you're gonna reinvent the wheel, when somebody has already built wheels that you can just build off of. Doing this literally set me on track to reach where I am today, so don't feel the need to really box yourself in if you're someone who really prides themselves on being this all-original kind of person. If I had known perfectionism was more of a curse than a blessing, I could be a lot further ahead today, if I'm being completely honest. I also began to learn for the first time that my happiness didn't need to come from other people. This is something I'm glad to know now in my life, but 15-year-old me soon learned that my own creativity was really the only friend I needed at the time. I know you're thinking that probably sounds like really depressing and sad, but it was really uplifting for me at the time, to be honest. There's a misconception that extroverts like myself need to be around people all the time to be happy. And it's not necessarily true, man. Like, I love Turkish food, but I don't need it every day to be happy. That's a normal thing. A certain degree of independence from people is absolutely necessary to get things done, especially the big things in life. Obviously, don't neglect your relationships, but understanding that you can be happy alone is something I wish someone had taught me at a much younger age, even as an introvert. Now, with all of these things in place, I thought I knew what I wanted after finishing grade 10. I thought everything could coexist beautifully together. Little did I know that there was a huge change coming in my life that would be forcing me to begin prioritizing what had to stay in my life and what needed to leave in my life. And there was a lot that stayed, and there was a lot of big things that had to get on out.